Life Church created this podcast because we all need healthy conversations with real people. So this podcast is here to help you start conversations with your life group, friends, and family. Now, on to the show.
Welcome to the You've Heard It Said podcast. This is Allie.
And Jason.
And we actually have one of our storytellers, Audra, here with us today.
Hello.
Hey, Audra.
So the reason I'm here today is because I want to ask you guys a question, maybe challenge you to something. So first, if you will just pull out your cell phone and then open up Instagram.
Okay.
And I want you guys to look at your followers.
Is that the one with the pictures?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And I want you to guesstimate the percentage of people that you follow that you know in real life, and then the percentage of people that you follow that you might not know in real life.
And know in real life, does that that means I've met them in real life?
The factor would be like, do you know who they are and did they know who you are?
Okay. It's actually surprising me how many of the people I know as I scroll. But part of that is because a couple weeks ago, I got on Instagram and unfollowed a ton of accounts on purpose. And one of the things I did was ask myself, do I know this person? And then I was like, and do I still talk with them? So right now, it's maybe like 80% of the people I know, something like that. But I still follow brands and stuff too.
Yeah. What are some of the brands that you follow?
You're going to make me geek out. I follow like coffee stuff. I follow a bunch of fly fishing, outdoor stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like bonsai.
Oh my gosh.
My goodness.
And then I have this really weird, how geeky do you want me to get?
I mean, all I did was ask what kind of accounts you follow, Jason.
I mean, those are the brands. And then like church stuff.
Okay. Yeah. What about you, Allie?
Yeah, I mean, I am realizing how many people that I follow that I don't know. I would say there's probably at least 20, if not 25% of the people that I follow, I don't know. And a lot of them are accounts that give me like tips for life. Like I follow this account called Big Little Feelings that it like helps you deal with toddler tantrums because I have a toddler.
I need that one.
You're right. It's really good. Or I follow a lot of like dietitians, or there's a lot of like really good brands that I like. So I'm a sucker for a brand that also has like a good cause. So I follow so many brands, which gets me in trouble a lot of the time because they're always in my feed, and then I want all the things that they post.
Oh, yeah. So that's actually what I wanted to talk about today, because I had an epiphany several months ago when one of my friends shared about when she went on a social media fast. And one of the things that my friend Jenna experienced was that going on a social media fast saved her money. And at first I was like, what? But then I started to think about it. And I have recently had an obsession with wanting a pergola for my back porch.
like the thing that you sit under.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like the thing that would provide shade and that you could
I feel so much better about
I don't think it's a nerdy thing to want.
No, I want a pergola too. I think they're cool.
I love being outside, and my back porch currently has no shade, and I live in the Midwest where there's a lot of sunshine and it gets really hot. And so I've just been thinking like, oh, it would be really great to have a pergola. But I realized that one of the reasons why I've been thinking about this so much is because I follow some accounts on Instagram of people who have really nice pergolas.
I want to see the comments on that. Like, this is a really nice pergola.
I don't think that it was like, hey, check out my pergola. It was just more like, oh, there's a picture of them outside, like enjoying the experience because they're not worried about getting sunburned. So there are a lot of accounts out there too that look like normal people, but are actually sponsored ads. Yeah. So it's not just like, oh, look, I painted my house. It's I painted my house with this kind of paint from this store.
Yeah.
And you could add that to your fly fishing account and all of those things that are like recommending products to you. And like those are actually ads, even though they just look like people talking. So that is what Jenna was experiencing. And we talked to her more about that.
I think in my mind, I'm following people that are similar to me. I don't think I'm following someone that's living an extravagant lifestyle. They feel very similar to how I live, or they're in my situation, or they have kids my age. And if they're raising their kids this way and they're using this toy and it's going so well, then my kids need that too. So I think it's more of, I didn't realize where my mind was when I was just swiping through social media. And it was really like reaching for these, oh, I need to do this to be better, or my life will be better because I'm going to buy these things. And so I think what social media can easily do is make me strive for things I think I want. And that leads obviously to buying more and getting more, when really I think my heart just needs to be in a place of, I am where I am. I have what I need. I don't need these things to make my life happier or more full or easier. I think easier for me is a big thing just in our family. So I think it's really a heart and gut check of, I need to be content where I'm at instead of striving for things in a different life that is not even my life. I'm just watching people's lives and thinking that I want that too, when really I just need to just be content and happy with where I am and where our family is.
Oh my goodness. I totally can relate to all of that. I have 100% done the exact same things that Jenna was talking about. And what makes it even sneakier too is that sometimes I'll even be in conversations with people and we'll talk about stuff that we've seen online. And then you get a million sponsored ads about them.
Oh, yeah. So I've totally done it too. And what I hear us talking about is like, maybe it's not just about what we do with money or how you balance your budget. Yes, that stuff matters, but there's also this issue of what are the things that our heart wants?
Yeah, so we actually have a couple, Austin and Tiffany, who in their 20s somehow managed to pay off $55,000 in debt in 4 years.
Crazy.
While traveling the world. And so we were just like,
how's that real?
How did you guys do that?
Tell us the secrets.
I have to start by telling you why we invited you to have this conversation with us. When we started talking about this topic of finances and who we wanted to have on the show, there was a chorus of people saying your names. I heard multiple people say that if we had to talk to anybody, it had to be you guys.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That is
Yeah,
crazy.
so that's why you're here. I
Awesome.
listened, yes.
Yeah.
So the only thing that I really know about your finances, and that feels weird to say because there's not very many people that I know anything about their finances, but the couple of things I know are things that are based on what you guys have posted on social media. So there's two things I know. The first thing is that you guys obviously really love to travel and do so. And then the next thing is that you have paid off all your debt.
Yep.
Yep.
Those are accurate.
It's true.
Yep.
So I don't know like a single millennial who that isn't their dream. I think that I have seen several like Pinterest posts that are like travel the world debt free, you know, and I just look at those and I'm like, man, that is the life to be able to do that. So that's what I want to ask you guys about today. So first, can you tell me about some of the places you guys have visited together?
Yes. Let's talk about some of our favorites. So one of my favorite places that we've ever been has been Iceland. And it's awesome, super expensive. So we didn't stay there very long, but it was really fun. We got to sit in it's basically like you're sitting in a giant bathtub with 1,000 other strangers. And it's
Clothed.
amazing. Clothed.
When you describe that,
Disclaimer, everybody is clothed.
so when you describe that, it doesn't necessarily make me want to go there.
Right? I know.
I don't
But
like
the
the idea of taking baths with strangers.
It's blue. Yeah. I mean, I guess if you're not into that
This is already off to a weird start.
It's awesome. You just have to trust me on
Okay.
it. And then Turkey, surprisingly, has been one of my favorite places we've ever been. Gosh, it's just a blend of so many amazing things. Great food, beautiful architecture. The people are amazing. So those have been two of my favorite places that we've been together.
Yeah, I think I really loved traveling to places that are totally different than the United States, where the culture is different, the weather is different, just something that will really feel like a unique experience. So I tend to like places like China and Egypt that we've been that just felt like a very unique experience.
And so you were able to travel while still paying off debt. Is that correct? And so how much debt did you guys have to pay off to become debt free, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. So we paid off $55,000 in 4 years.
Wow. That's amazing. I bet that feels really good.
Yes. Honestly, when we started out initially, it just felt like it was so far away. And when we started paying it off, we definitely didn't think we would do it that quickly. But yeah, it is really cool to be on the other side of it and now know like, oh, wow, we have margin now.
I think we would have been happy to have paid off that amount in 10 years. That was our plan. It was mostly my grad school loans, a couple of cars, and then some of Tiffany's undergrad loans. And we thought, if we could pay those off in 10 years, that'd be pretty awesome. But what you don't realize is the momentum and the excitement that you feel as you start to pay it off. And then as you get into it, you just want to throw everything that you have at it. And so I think if you have a good plan, you actually end up doing it a lot quicker than you anticipated. And that was the case for us.
Oh, well, that's really encouraging. Okay, so what are some of the things that you guys had to sacrifice to make that happen?
Yeah, I think something I always tease Austin about, but I actually think it really helps just because it's his mindset is, I've always joked that he has extreme buyer's guilt to like the point where he like won't even buy himself socks. I just buy things for him knowing that he needs them. But it sounds extreme. And some of it I'm like, okay, you can buy the shirt when we go to the mall. It's not going to break us, I promise. But the flip side of that is so good about being so intentional about the decisions that we make. And so I think that's really helped us and helped me because I am definitely more of a spender and just thinking through what we are going to buy, and small purchases actually really do add up over time. And so I think just his mindset has been really helpful. I do tease him about it, and he has new socks, guys. So that's important.
Good.
Yeah.
That is good.
But yeah.
I think about just all the small things. I mean, Tiffany and I eat most of our meals at home. We cook. We go out maybe once, maybe twice a month to go eat at a restaurant. We don't have cable. We just have Netflix. It's just small things like that. But you don't realize how quickly those things can add up to $400 or $500 in your budget so quickly without realizing it.
And I think, if there is something that we do want to purchase, and now I'm really excited about furniture for our back patio because I want to sit out there more. So in situations like that, we're always really intentional, not always, but for the most part, we're pretty intentional to sit down and talk through like, okay, if we still want this at the end of the week, then we'll, go make that decision. I don't know if it's necessarily a sacrifice, but we really try hard not to give in to like instant gratification and really delaying that and making sure that the decision we're making, we're actually going to be happy with still a week from now or a year from now. So I think that's been helpful.
Yeah, I think that's so smart because I think of how many things have I bought that are more of an impulse buy.
The dollar section at Target, that little bullseyes play art thing.
Yep.
Every time we go into Target, Austin's like, eyes on the prize. Do not look at this.
Oh my gosh. That's funny. Yeah. So, okay, as I'm listening to these things that you've been able to accomplish, which are amazing, I'm also noticing that I'm sort of building a case in my head that it will work for you, but for some reason it wouldn't work for me. Like when you say, Austin's not an impulse buyer, in my mind I'm like, I am an impulse buyer.
Yeah.
Or when you say like, well, we don't go out to eat, I'm thinking about, okay, well, yesterday I went out to eat like twice in one day or something like that. So I wondered if you guys would let us behind the curtain a little bit and just say, what do you say to people who hear your story and maybe feel like that could never happen to them? And maybe like, was there ever a point in your own journey where you looked at someone else and you thought there's no way that you could meet the financial goals that they were able to meet?
You have to make it work for your life and like what is important to you. And I think that was what we decided was there were some things that weren't important to us and some things that were. So for us, it is important for us to get to spend time together and take trips together. So that became a priority. Whereas people that we knew, they did not travel until they were done paying off debt. And that was something we were like, there is no way we can do that. Like we just had to decide what was important. Spending time together was important. So we still traveled. Eating out wasn't as important because I love to cook, but there are many people that don't love to cook, and that's totally fine. So I would say set a budget for how much you want to spend and try to stick to it and not necessarily follow like a specific formula. I think that's hard to do. And that's definitely, we took bits and pieces of what we learned from people in our lives and financial courses and stuff, but we didn't follow it to a T because it just wouldn't have worked for us.
Yeah, I think for us, we decided travel was important to us, not just to travel and have new experiences, but to invest in our marriage. And we decided if that means that it takes us a little bit longer to pay off our debt than we originally planned, we're okay with that. But having a trip to look forward to honestly made some of the day-to-day sacrifices worth it and easier. So I think whatever that is, whatever motivation you need, if it's still going to keep you on track and it's going to keep you sane in the process, like you can't eat rice and beans every day.
Right.
Whatever works.
See friends and
whatever works for you, as long as you're still taking steps toward that goal, it's worth the sacrifice.
Yeah.
And to go back to your other question, absolutely, there were times we looked at, especially at the beginning of our journey, we looked at other people and thought there's no way we'll ever get to live that life. I remember our first day of going through the Financial Peace University course from Dave Ramsey. And he talked about the baby steps. And the very first baby step is to save $1,000 for an emergency fund. And I remember thinking, it's going to take us 50 years to save $1,000. There's no way. It's just in my mind, the math isn't adding up. And I'm thinking, well, surely our car's going to break down and we're going to have to use that money. Or surely our dog's going to have to go to the vet or whatever. But then you get there. And you look back and you realize, man, we made it happen. And what seemed really impossible at the beginning now seems like no big deal. And every step along the way has been like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true.
I like that you guys put a value on everything that you were spending money on. So you recognize, okay, travel, which maybe to some people more of a frivolous expense, but the value to you was, no, this is valuable because it means that we can get away and spend time with each other. And then you also put a value on things like getting coffee. And you're like, okay, maybe getting coffee has a small value because it's really easy to make coffee at home. So I really like that you do that. And it's really helpful to think about it that way because it's very hard, for me at least, to think, oh, I don't have to follow all these steps exactly. What kinds of thoughts do you have, or what are some things that you do to make sure that you're focusing on your financial priorities and not just what you want in the moment?
This is definitely harder for me. Austin has the discipline of, I don't even know, 50 really disciplined people. I can't think of anybody right now. But
that does sound really impressive.
Yeah, right. But it is so much harder for me. So a couple of things. I have a specific budget for like me being able just to spend money, even if it's on like a coffee or like a new shirt or a book or something like that. And we set that limit and talk about it because it just gets out of control and I don't have a limit. So that's one thing I do.
I mean, for us, it's as simple as an Excel spreadsheet. We have a budget that we've agreed on together. We've crafted it together. It's nothing fancy. You guys would probably laugh if you saw it.
It's super basic.
It's so basic. And we keep close tabs on that. On, okay, we've agreed to this budget. Now, are we actually sticking to it? And if we're not, we hold each other accountable to that because we have goals that we want to accomplish together. And so it goes both ways for us. We both value stewardship. We both value generosity. And so if we're not able to do that in our finances, we try to figure out what's stopping us. Is it that we're just making $3 purchases all the time and not really keeping track of them? Okay, great. Why don't we just pull up a note on our phone and start writing them down? And maybe we don't have to do that forever, but maybe it'll get us into the habit of thinking through those small purchases before we make them.
That's been the big one for sure.
You want to tell them about our budget check-ins?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Austin does not do this anymore because I got mad about it. But used to, like 9 a.m. on a Friday, because we were both off on those days a couple years ago, would wake up and he's not a morning person at all. And he'd come in with his computer all bright-eyed and he'd be like, hey, do you want to talk about our budget? And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And so I joke about those, but it actually is super helpful. So we do them less frequently and not in the morning. And just sit down and talk through our finances. And I think the thing for me, especially being the person that is more of the spender, I've had to really be open to that accountability and just making sure that if Austin and I are talking about it and we're bringing some correction there, it's not because he doesn't want me to have fun, but it is because we have goals. So, yeah.
What are some of the mindsets that you've adopted about money that help you achieve your goals or just even decide how to manage your money?
Growing up, I think I thought that it was a resource that always would run out. And so if you didn't have enough, there wasn't security there. And so I think for me, I've learned it is the opposite. Like your security can't fall into your finances. It just can't be placed there. And so that's something that's been really important to me of knowing that when we were first married, I mean, Austin was working 2 or 3 jobs and I was working as a bank teller. So we were not making a lot of money at all. And I think I just had to learn that you can't have your value and worth in your money, and you have to ultimately trust in God to provide. And I think over time that's grown into the more that you're given, the more you are now expected to give that away. And so I think for me initially, especially when we first got married, I was always thinking, we just need to have enough to like make me feel secure. But then that moved into, actually God brings that security. And actually when you do have more resources, then ultimately you're supposed to give those away. And so it's just one of those things where it's always evolved for me. But I think initially it was a pretty scary place to think about, like, we have $100 for groceries. How are we going to make that work? And
Yeah. I really want to talk about that because I feel like it's the relationship between giving and money is so backwards from what people would think. And so you were saying that you can't place your security in money. And I think that that's a mindset that a lot of people have. So what would you say to someone who is maybe thinking, once I have enough to be secure, then I can give money?
I would say that you really have to lean in and trust that God is your provider, because that feeling doesn't go away. It doesn't go away because you have more money. It goes away because your mindset changes and because your outlook changes on how you view your finances and what God has trusted to you. And so, for me, it hasn't been something that automatically just went away because now we have an emergency fund. It's something I continually have to work towards in my mind. And I think that's what generosity is all about. It's not you arrive at a certain point, you are continually getting there because God is showing you more and more that this is how his resources that he's given you are supposed to be used.
Yeah.
Well, number one, Tiffany and I agreed from the day we got married that we would tithe together.
Yeah.
We committed to that. It was something both of us had done before we got married. It was who we are. We believe Scripture's clear about that. We've already seen God's provision in our life because of that. So that was the baseline. No matter what state our finances are in, we're going to commit to returning to God that 10%. Then beyond that, a verse that's guided us that I love is Proverbs 11:24 in the Message translation. And it says, the world of the generous gets larger and larger, but the world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller.
Wow.
And I like to think of that it's not like a God is a vending machine. Right. I put in $1 and I get $10 out. He doesn't work that way. But I think God looks for people and for places where he can put resource where he knows that person's going to be generous with it. And if I'm not generous with what I have today, why would I expect God to bless me with more? And again, it's not always if X, then Y. Right. And sometimes it's not even financial. Sometimes it's all these other areas of our lives that he brings blessing to and favor to. But I truly believe that the parable of the talents is real and that we see that play out in our finances.
Yeah. And I think something I've tried to remind myself of is that I've never regretted giving. Like there's never been a time where I've looked back and thought like, oh man, we should not have given to that person or tithe or anything like that. Like that's just never been a thought. So I think that's an important thing too. Like the more you do it and the more you're obedient, the more I think God really does change your mindset about it.
So we talked earlier about putting value on the things that you spend your money on. So what value do you put on giving and tithing?
It's the top line of our budget.
Yeah.
It really is. It's the first thing. For us, that's symbolic. It's to say, God, the very first thing that we do with our finances is we honor you with them. Everything else after that, the travel, even paying off debt, the coffee, groceries, whatever, that's further down the list. That's not as important. And God, I believe that if we gave and for some reason we didn't have money left over, you would still provide a way for us.
Yeah.
And to this day, we've never missed a bill. Even when the math didn't seem like it should add up, God has always provided. And so that builds your faith to say, all right, God, I've seen where you've honored when we've put you first before. And so now when I find myself having that moment of hesitation, having that moment of fear, God, are we going to have enough? God, should we give to this need? Should we step in to help this person? Is that irresponsible? I go back to all the ways that he's followed through with us before. And then it's easy. It's easy to say yes to wanting to be more generous.
What did it feel like when you looked at $1,000 and thought, this is going to take us 50 years? What did it feel like to say, we're still going to give this much money?
I think it's important to note, too, that at that point, the income on our spreadsheet was less money than the expenses column. And so we were like in the hole every month, having to pull from very little savings. So the fear was real.
Looking at that number, it was like, oh, cool. So we get to eat or we get to give. That's where we're at right now. And just every time, like Austin said, we never missed a bill. I genuinely don't understand how we never did.
There was the fear side, but there was also the peace side of, all right, it's a little easier to do something scary if you really believe that it's the right thing to do.
Right.
And if you really believe that you're obeying God, there's this overwhelming peace that makes it a little bit easier.
So what encouragement do you have for people? Maybe they're making that budget and they're in the red. What encouragement do you guys have for them?
I would say first, make sure that your money is going where you want it to go. And if your faith is an important part of your life, if obeying God is something that's important to you, make sure that your money is proving that. And I would say, remember that generosity is not about the amount. And Scripture is super clear about that, that it's about the heart. It's about what God is doing within you. And the story of the widow in Scripture who gives everything that she has, the amount was nothing compared to what other people were able to throw into the bucket with no change in their heart. But yet that's a story we're still talking about today. And so no matter where you're starting, you have the opportunity to honor God. You have the opportunity to make a difference. God multiplies what we give, right? The story of the fishes and the loaves, it's not about the amount. It's about what God can do through your obedience and through your generosity. And that builds your faith in such a big way. So you might feel like, man, I'm not even making a dent in my debt right now. I'm not even giving anything through the tithe that I'm giving. It's so small. Could it even make an impact? But that's a human perspective. God's perspective on things is so much different. And he will change your heart and hopefully allow you to see the impact that your giving has when you give.
Hey guys, it's Allie. Speaking of money, maybe you're living that ramen noodle life, and we feel ya. If you are a young adult, we have got content for you about adulting, relationships, and all sorts of other great stuff. You can find it at life.church/collective, and here's a sneak peek.
Once you turn 18, it feels like you have to have your whole life together. But what if you don't get it together? What if you feel lost in life? Like where you thought you'd be is so far from where you are right now? It turns out we have a lot of big questions. The what is the meaning of life kinds of questions. The ones that keep you up at night, wondering if anyone else feels the same way. So we started a blog to ask those questions. Questions like, how do you even become a real life functioning adult? How do you find the friends and figure out what to even do with your life? We can't promise the answers, but let's figure it out together. We are a collective group of young adults finding life, seeking to make a collective difference with our collective influence.
When I was first starting out on my own, I read a book called The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach. And it's a book about personal finances and how to manage money. But what was interesting was that at the end, there's an entire chapter on giving 10% of your money to a charitable cause. So up until this point, I had only heard about that in church circles. But if you do a quick Google search, you'll actually find a lot of articles and statements from many financial professionals all saying the same thing. Why? I think David Bach had a really good explanation of it in his book. He said, generally speaking, the more you give, the wealthier you feel. And it's not just a feeling. As strange as it may seem, the truth is that money often flows faster to those who give. Why? because givers attract abundance into their lives rather than scarcity.
I love that. I think that it goes back to what we've been talking about, how it's our mindset that actually does affect our money a lot more than just the money itself. And so I think when we think about mindsets, sometimes we think, oh, I've got to change my mindset and then my actions will change. And I mean, that's true for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I think in my life, I've actually found that taking action is what has changed my mindset. So when I decided to start tithing in college, I realized that my money isn't actually mine. And so the simple act of deciding to do that, even when it felt really weird and like this is kind of uncomfortable, but deciding to do it is what helps me realize that it's not mine. And so it's made it easier for me to give away over time. And so now I'm married and my husband and I don't really fight about money that often because we both know that it's not ours. And so for me, it was taking the action that really helped me see that my money isn't mine.
So this is making me think about Jesus. In Matthew 6:25-33, you might have remember him talking about the birds and the flowers and look at how well they're dressed. And he's basically trying to say, hey, I took pretty good care of the birds and the flowers. Don't you think that I'm going to take care of you? And this is the same part where he talks about not worrying about tomorrow. How much of financial stresses are us worrying about the future in advance? So then on the other side of this, early on in my life, I was like, well, I'm just going to ignore money then. Like, I don't want money to drive me at all. And so early on in my marriage, that worked sometimes. We'd give a bunch of money away. We'd be generous. We'd spend money on things. And I mean, we were careful to an extent, but we didn't budget. We didn't do a lot of these things that you really need to do to be financially healthy. And basically, we were ignoring money. Now, here's the problem with ignoring money, other than like the fact that you end up not having enough, is that it can allow money to control you. Because if you don't see something happening, all of a sudden it's like you're out of money and you can't be generous anymore and you wanted to be, or you're out of money and you can't provide for your kids in a way anymore and you wanted to be able to. And here's like even bigger deal than that, okay? If you ignore money, you're ignoring a tool that God loves to use to make you more like himself, because God is more generous than anyone you could ever meet or know. And if you're ignoring one of the things that he uses to be generous with others, then you're ignoring him.
So here's what you can do with your friends, your family, your life group this week. I want you to ask these 2 questions. The first question is, how are you actually doing financially? That is a really hard one to answer. Like that gave me like the cold sweats thinking about it. But I think it's an important question to answer with people that you trust. And then the second thing is your mindset around money one of scarcity or abundance?
Hey, thanks so much for listening to today's episode. Now remember, we want you to actually do something about what you heard. So to make that a little simpler, we've created this conversation guide. It's full of resources and links, and it's going to help you start conversations with people in your life. And one other thing, if you go to Life.Church/You've Heard It Said, you can actually subscribe to be the first to find out whenever there's a new episode and new conversation guide. Have a great week.